Hey there, welcome to ATL in 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I'm here with Glenn Willis and Tyler Jones. We are recording late on a Friday night after the Hawks lost to the Clippers. Um, it was a gruesome third quarter, maybe with some sprinkles of gruesome throughout. Um, any big takeaways from what you saw tonight, Glenn?
I mean, for me, so on the preview I put on Patreon, I was like, this is a terrible matchup. Like, they're so big, they're so physical, they're a veteran team, and I think sometimes fans don't appreciate like how much of a factor that is. Like they're playing Kawhi and Harden and Zuba, Batum and on and on and
Batum.
on, right? And it just makes a big difference. Like veterans that are playing together and have the continuity of what they're working on. They're not developing young players over there on the Clippers. And so it makes a big difference. Now, if they had Clint, would that have helped to get Zubac some? I mean, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. It's like depends on what Clint we got. Right? We don't know with
That's
Clint we would
important.
have gotten, and would that have helped or not helped? And then tough game to ask Don Barlow to go out and kind of deal with. What he had to deal with. So for me, it's like I thought the Hawks were gonna have to have like a really, really good offensive game, but the Clippers are fourth in defensive rating. They're top five in turning opponents over, turning those into points. And those are, common problem areas for the Hawks in games that they don't win. So I mean, I know fans seemed really upset with his loss, and I don't. For me, I personally just don't understand it because the Clippers are just in a different place as a team than where the Hawks are right now.
What'd you think, Tyler?
Uh, I don't know. That third quarter was pretty bad. I thought it's one of the worst trade games I've ever seen. Um, Turned out, he came out with something on his shoulder, and he talked about that after the game. That's been a consistent problem for him for a couple years now. So we'll see how he manages it. But I thought he was very tentative in the first half, in particular, shying away from contact, and that was really putting the Hawks behind the eight ball. And then also, like, you know, it, Mo's just got to be a smarter player. He played limited minutes and he was good in some stretches, but like you're on a fast break, you see Shay's ahead of you. Like, what are you doing? Cutting, running down the middle of the floor, like back off. So it's just simple things. He made a couple of mistakes on the offensive end, and then Barlow. I thought Barlow was not in the flow of what the Hawks offense wanted to do. Too often he was just kind of not paying attention to what the other four guys were doing on the floor is the best way to put it. And so I, I honestly, because the Clippers had Ben Simmons, I mean, I don't think it would have changed much, but I would have tried Mo at center when Ben Simmons was in the game, just because Barlow would just felt so out of sync with everybody else, and it was really putting them behind the eight ball. On at least on the offensive end. Defensively, I thought he did the best he could, so I can't complain too much there. I just think overall, like Glenn said, it's a particularly bad matchup because the Clippers don't play bad defenders outside of James Harden, and James Harden like wrote the book on how not to be the main character on defense. Like he's very good at getting himself out of action. And so like the Hawks were wasting time too often, not attacking when they did have, especially in that third quarter. So that was bad, but the good was like Ricochet. I mean, he's playing some great ball. Like it's not just tonight. It's been like really recently. I think he's kind of figuring a lot more stuff out. I've been pretty impressed with his overall game. So like that's a real positive takeaway. And like Okongwu had a good bounce back game. I thought, I didn't have any. I thought Okongwu was quite frankly was pretty good, but you know, if you're not getting anything from Trey, you're not going to beat a good team.
Yeah, Glenn mentioned all the savvy Clipper defenders, and I think the point of attack defense was pretty good too. Like he was mentioning everybody else. Like they had Derrick Jones Jr. as a pretty
Yeah.
good point of attack defender, and then Chris Dunn, like he would not get screened. Like they could just not get him off Trey. You mentioned Trey not maybe not being physical enough, but like the fact that Dunn just absolutely refused to get screened and was just really tenacious at the point of attack, I thought he had a real impact on the game. And what the Hawks were trying to do was sort of try to take advantage of Chris Dunn on the other end of the floor and make the offense for the Clippers go through him. I thought they did that well for the first like 5 minutes of the game. And then they could just not make it work all the other times that Chris Dunn was on the floor. They did a good job of kind of hiding him on offense so that the Hawks couldn't bring the help from his direction with any predictability.
Well, I felt like you saw the real difference in why physicality matters. The Hawks screeners, non-centers want to slip and get to the, middle of the floor, and that just wasn't working. But then you compared that to what the Clippers were doing. Like Nick Batum was carrying Dyson to the front. Now it was a legal screen, but they never call that. So
That's right.
like he was literally just carrying Dyson to the front of the rim to take
That's
Dyson
right.
completely out of the play.
Uh-huh.
And they were attacking Niang constantly when Niang was in the game. That was really hurting. That really hurt the Hawks.
That was a
Uh,
huge factor.
yeah,
All of
and
that.
so like that's one of those things where you got to mix up what you're doing on your screenplays. Like Shea and Dyson both have to also set the actual screen and then carry the defender to get the switch, on a lesser defender so that Trey can go to like and Trey's got to go to work in isolation sometimes. Like he's struggled with that a bit more this season, but again, it just wasn't their night. But that is something they could take away from this game. It's like there's a different way to set a screen, especially if there's a weaker defender on the floor. Like these guys got to set. I know I understand Trey wants to slip all the time, but like sometimes you just got to set the screen and then carry the man to get the advantage because too often like they were setting ghost screens and they weren't leading it to anything.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the Clippers being so better, and a younger defensive team might not know how to handle a go screen. The go screen, the slips lets you play through your action faster, and less experienced defenses can really make mistakes against that. The Clippers had no anxiety around those guard wings screens that were kind of coming through and ghosting. The other technique I thought is really noteworthy around screen navigation on the Clipper side, like whether it was Dunn or DJJ, I mean, they were picking up Trey as soon as he crossed half court, right? Trey had to work just to get to his screener. Like he had to work hard, and he could never get the angle he wanted, and and all that sort of stuff. And so that ball pressure and that proactiveness of like really picking him up high. I mean, Trey would get to his screener, and there's like 13 on the shot clock, and also now you've got two passes you can make to kind of get to what you need to do with what's time left. And so, I mean, I
And
no,
Glenn, just to add to your point, like this hurt in particular because most nights Dyson's being guarded by a lesser defender and Dyson could just bring the ball up the floor.
yeah,
Or even potentially Ricochet could potentially bring the ball up the floor. The Clippers were like, no, James Harden isn't going to guard Dyson. He's not going to guard Ricochet. He's going to guard a complete non-ball handler. And he's going to force and so the Clippers were like, either Trey's bringing the ball up the floor or Dyson's going to bring up the ball up the floor against a good defender, or Ricochet is going to have to bring up the ball floor against a good defender with pressure against him. And like they have not shown, Dyson has shown an ability to do that, but it takes him a while. Like he's not going to be able to just go by the guy and then score the ball. Like that's just not part of his game yet. I think also like this is another one of those games where if Jalen's in the game, now Jalen could be another option to bring the ball up the floor, and like it's a lot. Like you could manipulate it in such a way where Jalen can bring the ball up the floor potentially against a lesser defender and it not be an issue. But like the inability of either Ricochet or Dyson to like get by physical defenders who are like good physical defenders is a problem. and that showed up against the Clippers. It goes back to your point where it's a bad matchup because, like I said, Clippers don't play weak defenders. Uh, and I thought Ty Lue did a good job of like just not having Bogey be in the game in the second half because he knew like the Hawks were getting their offense when like Bogey was in the game. Like if we're being honest, that's where they went on the run in the first half. Second half, Ty Lue was like, enough of this. Like unlike Quinn Snyder, who just let Terrence Mann decide who he's going to guard. Ty Lue doesn't care about that crap. He's trying to win basketball.
And like at the same
Yeah,
time, like as bad as a disaster of that as that third quarter was, like you still kind of appreciate like this Hawks team, like they really try. Like even when they were failing spectacularly in the third quarter, like what were they failing at? They were failing at like shots in the paint, like 9 feet, 5 feet, dead square in the paint. Like they were not bad shots. I don't know. Like it's not like this is the end of the world for the Hawks. Like
no.
they played a good team that had a good night, and if you don't play your A game against the Clippers, you bring your C plus game, you're gonna get it taken to you.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Clippers got
they
the cover.
pushed Trey left the whole night, right? He couldn't
Yep.
get right. And they kind of dictated terms, defensively, the whole game. And it was interesting to me when Quinn called that timeout, like I don't know, halfway through the third quarter, they had scored 6 points maybe at that point. I don't remember how many. It was a long stretch, and they moved the point of the pick and roll from the middle to the 3 point break. They moved it out of the middle of the floor. And I was like, well, I wonder if this is gonna because a lot of times coaches like to run that slot because if you're in the middle or on the side, the principles are very clear. If you run that slot, it's like, is this side, is this middle? And like I said, an inexperienced young defense might get confused on what the help scheme is and all that sort of stuff. Clippers, no problem at all. We know exactly what we're doing. You run your slot picker. They tried like 3 times, produced nothing. And so you just watch the game, and Hawks fans are getting upset, and and I'm just like, the Clippers are ready for everything that they're doing on offense, and that's just how it is with a veteran team sometimes. I mean, Jeff Van Gundy is one of the best defensive head coaches the last 30 years. T. Lue learned under Doc, with the Celtics and kind of grew out of that. That's a really good staff they got over there,
Very
and
good
and
stuff.
that's a staff that's built to work with a veteran group, not a young group, and that's just a completely different team and roster context than what the Hawks have right now.
I I have to be careful how I phrase this. Not from a political, but just I want to get my sentiment across. Like this is the kind of game that makes me a little bit wary about the DeAndre Hunter trade because you want to have your shooting in a package that also doesn't kill you defensively. Like I, there are times where, DeAndre Hunter's offense, can be kind of rigid and you don't want him creating on offense. So it's a completely different look for the Hawks having Karis LeVert, who you just absolutely love having as a secondary creator. Like it's just night and day. Like so much of the offense that Hunter was getting at the first part of this season when it was going great for him was really just simplistic stuff where it's just he's a great shooter. But in a game like this, like they desperately needed a little bit more shooting in a package that, wouldn't kill them on the defensive end. Like they could not put Niang in there as much as they did. Like he just did not have this like this game was not for him. And like, there are other games, like the Charlotte game earlier this week, or maybe, Brooklyn coming up on Sunday where, this combination of Karras and George is going to be something that really produces for the Hawks. But I just feel like against these veteran teams, against big veteran teams that really know what to do on defense, I feel like they're still going to miss DeAndre Hunter until Zachary progresses a little bit more and gets a little bit stronger. I mean,
Yeah, Kevin.
a year from now, a year and a half from now, it's going to be moot. But like in the very instant present, like it's
I
concerning.
mean, the thing is, in the instant present right now, I thought the best power forward option was Zachary Richey at the forward, and they didn't. Quinn did it in the first half. And then he didn't get back. Like when they're struggling to score points, he brought in Niang instead of Levert. And it's one of those things where it's like, Quinn's going on old habits, but the game was clearly away from Niang in the third quarter, like in the entire game. Like it was clear Niang shouldn't have been playing in the first half. And just how James Harden in particular was attacking him, like it was surgical, you know, veteran stuff. I thought, but the Hawks countered by just having Ricochet play the four, and it was the best stretch of basketball they played. He needs to go back to that sooner in the third quarter with either Levert or Man in the game and just match up to what the Clippers were doing if he didn't want to have Mo Gay on the floor anymore. So I just think, and I felt like, and I was really frustrated in the Hornets game when Ricochet didn't play at all in the fourth quarter because I thought that was just a flat out mistake. I thought he was clearly one of their better players that entire game. He wasn't making shots, but he was playing physical defense that they needed that was missed when he wasn't in the game. And I thought, like, if he wanted to close, he should have closed with Ricochet at the four instead of Mo Gay, who was, again, Mo was good. Like, he was okay, but if you can play against, particularly against a Hornets team that's not that big and a Clippers team that doesn't play a traditional power forward, you could have got away with playing Ricochet at the four. And I think Quinn kind of I just think it was a mistake. Like if he's going to take Gay out, it needs to be Levert coming back in because they clearly needed another ball handler, another creator, and he should have just gone trade Levert there instead of trading Niang. Which I mean, that's what he does typically because most teams don't have the roster construction that the Clippers do. I just think it was a mistake on like they'll look back at him like I should have just put in Levert. Like that's that's to me was just a tactical error. But like they probably still don't win the game because of how poor Trey was playing overall. But I just think it was a tactical error to go to Niang because like then the floodgates just open on the defensive end. There were just too many holes to fill.
Yeah, they scored 61 in the first half, and Yang played 6 minutes. So, but everything got by. I mean, I think it's hard on a coach. I mean, I'm not going to say be a Quinn apologist, but when your team is literally not scoring for like minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes, I mean, I understand an instinct to put a shooter out there, but I think they need more ball handling and creation more than shooting. I think secondary ball handling, which
Agreed.
is Levert, is your best option there, especially in a game where Dyson's struggling so much uncharacteristically. I think Levert should have played a ton in the second half. And to your point, I don't think the Hawks win, but you wonder if they get it down to 8, 10 points, and then make it interesting. But yeah, to me, in that kind of matchup, I thought Levert was really the player that's going to help Trey most, not have to carry all of the creation workload.
Or even beat, just based on the
Yep.
fact that he's willing to take a three-pointer when he catches the ball, which is, other guys on this team could learn from beat just to simply shoot the ball. But like
Zach's
that
on
was a
board too. Like, even in the second half of this game, like he just did not stop. Like it's refreshing that, he's just 19 and like, his team's having a bad game. The Clippers are just, really doing well defensively and like he does not deviate from the game plan. Like what he has been told, he is still going to try to do it and do it with fervor. So
and and I thought Quinn rewarded him with playing him extended minutes in that first half. So like I'm just saying in that third quarter in particular, for like what could have Quinn done better? I just think, like Glenn said, it wasn't shooting, it was ball handling. He needed somebody to literally just bring the ball up the floor
yep,
and run the offense. And I think if you got another real live ball handler instead of George's Niang, maybe maybe it's not 8 to 35. It's like 17 to 35 or something, but you're still in the game.
right.
You only score 8 points in the quarter, like the game just ends. It doesn't,
Yeah,
it's
you
just
did.
hard to come back from that.
Yeah. I don't know if everyone noticed, but like Zach, I think 2 possessions, he played point guard at the very end during garbage time.
Mhm.
So it was only two, but I'm like, okay, this matters, kind of, give him a little feel for that because down the road, that's going to be something he's going to have to do more of is create on ball, and I know they're trying not to load him up in that role right now, but I'm just curious, like the rest of the way, you're going to see a little bit of that here and there when the game's not at a high leverage point.
I like to me, I felt like he was responding to the fact that he didn't play in the fourth quarter with how he played today. Um, particular like man, it's tough because that first half he had a couple of passes which I thought were the best passes I've seen from him in his career. Like they didn't go for assists. They didn't go for assists, but like
No,
he
they
drove
didn't.
hard drive with his left hand to like a above the head. I think it went to Dyson,
It
one of
went to
them.
Dyson, and he
Yeah,
led him to the 3-point break.
let
Like
him let him to the spot.
it
It
hit him
wasn't he
right in
wasn't
the
open.
right in the
I'm
shot
like
pocket.
I'm like what was that? I'm like wow, that was special. And so
Yes, it
like it
was.
I under like I'm frustrated that they the game wasn't close and they lost that game just because of how well Ricochet played overall as a
That's
player.
right.
That's where my frustration comes in. I'm like, man, we kind of wasted like legitimately. He's had better scoring games. I thought that was one of his best. That might have been his best all around, like offense, defense, rebounding. Like he was doing everything, and so like that was great to and passing too. That was great to see from him overall. So hopefully he can build on this, despite that the fact the Hawks got blown out.
Yeah, he's going to be good. The whole rest of the NBA observers who don't watch the Hawks that much can think like his stat line is indicative of what he is right now, but it is not. And besides, it's not bad. It's not a bad stat line.
No, it's not. There's
It's just
nothing that he's
some
done.
people have it in their head. He was the first overall pick, and have silly kind of expectations that extend from that. But he's gonna be really good. I think the skill, the mental makeup, his willingness to buy into the role that they're asking him to do, how coachable he is, and how team minded, that all over time is going to come together, and he's going to be such an impactful player because of all of those different characteristics he has.
And the
I
Hawks
mean,
did
he's
not even lose ground in their play-in race. I mean, or let's call it the Southeast Division race because Miami and Orlando also lost.
Yeah.
The Southeast Division race is uh, not going terribly well as it's going to look like finishing like 3 games below 500 will get you the division.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing for me too, I mean, it's interesting that maybe no one noticed is like, I mean, Yakov had a rough game against Charlotte, like one of his
Yes,
roughest games in a long time.
absolutely.
And to bounce back again when you're going up against Zubac, to me, that's a little silver lining tonight was he bounced back in a really, really tough matchup for him and did well. And it doesn't make Hawks fans probably feel great about how the whole game went, but to me, that was noteworthy. That Yakov
and
competed.
and to be honest, I thought he needed to be more aggressive on the offensive end,
Yeah.
especially considering that Zubac was so far in the lane, like he wasn't respecting the shot.
That's right.
But he was giving Onyeka a driving lane, and like he took it a couple times. I thought he could have taken it a little bit more
Yeah.
to take some more pressure off Trey, just in general, get to that floater spot and just take the shot because they just needed offense from somebody because they weren't getting it from Trey. But I'm 100% in agreement with Onyeka. Like he strong bounce back game. Um, actually, I thought the Charlotte game first half was bad. Second half, I thought he did a really good job of just pushing Mark Williams or whoever was the center was under the basket so that they couldn't block the shot anymore, which is what was causing them problems in the first half. And that's how the Hawks their offense kind of kicked it into high gear where they were just driving to the rim unimpeded. So, like, he recovered. I just think he just had an off night finishing around the rim. But overall, like, Onyeka has been incredible since more or less since he came back from the injury, 4 game injury. And like, Ricochet's been great since coming back from his injury as well. So that's good to see that those two guys have responded like they have.
Is there anything that you're in particular that you're looking for from the Hawks 2 game trip coming up. They're going to go to Brooklyn. They're going to see Charlotte again in Charlotte. These are two teams that aren't necessarily, they aren't going to be in the playoffs, but Charlotte's been feisty. They won over San Antonio tonight, but I mean, I don't know. What is there
Yeah,
to expect
so
from these 2 games?
yeah, so it's interesting. So when the Charlotte game, I did the preview there. I talked about the fact that their league average on defense with that roster, like Charles Lee is like doing a really good work to get defensive productivity out of them.
Hmm.
And and they're not like super talented defensively, but their habits are and their principles are pretty solid, you know. And I think that showed up the whole game, you know,
It's weird
against
because it's
Charlotte.
like LaMelo, like usually I don't know, so much of defense a lot of the time comes down to like your weak link and your center. And like LaMelo is terrible and Mark Williams has a lot of troubles at times, but like they still kind of make it
Yeah.
work.
They sink to the paint and they, you know, if you can make your threes, great, but they sink to the paint and they stay pretty connected. I'm not saying there's some great defensive team, it's just, but they're statistically they're really outperforming the amount of defensive talent they have on their roster. And to me, I
Right.
give Charles Lee a lot of credit for that. And Brooklyn, it's like, man, if you watch them game to game, it's like you don't know what I don't know what to expect from that team, you know. But and like I always say, NBA players broadly they have pride. Like they don't want to go out and just get, you know, walk off the floor and you know, and so if you take anything for granted, I mean, the Sixers competed. Those young guys on the Sixers competed hard that whole game,
Yep.
and you know Charlotte too. And it's one of those things where the Hawks are, they need every single win they can get. Hopefully, have a one win into the playoffs in that play-in spot, right? And
Hmm.
so they got to take these seriously. They have to take these 100% seriously. And I thought they, you know, against both Charlotte and Philly, I thought they, um, you know, were on task. But I think there were times that they maybe had a chance to kind of take control of the game and then do it at different opportunities. And so I think if there's a thing to tweak going into these next few games, playing teams that are a lot further back in the standings, is when you get to a point in the game where you're up 15 points, like put your foot on your neck, you know, just like put the game out of reach, and you're the better team. So that's the one maybe kind of different thing I'm looking for is that instinct to put the game out of reach when they have a chance.
I've I've talked about that aspect before. I'm not sure if they have, without Jalen in particular, the talent to do that. Uh, just because ultimately what we're really saying is that Trey has to go on a run here to put the game away because there's not really another, you know, Dyson and Ricochet can do it in spurts, but they're not consistent in the way that like Jalen's in the game, grabbing every defensive rebound. He's pushing the ball up the floor, getting open threes in transition, easy offense. Up, we're up by 20 points. The game's over. And Trey's not even in the game. Now, when Trey's off the floor, it's just such a struggle for this team, really, to get consistently good offense, even though the process has been a little bit better now, but it's still like, okay, we're grabbing the rebound. Now we're going to run our offense instead of grab the ball, push the ball up the floor, and dunk on somebody. Like there's a talent that they're lacking that honestly it's something that I want to see Ricochet really embrace more. He did it against the Hornets one possession where he took the ball and just drove all the way to the front of the rim and dunked the ball. And like he's got to look for that because he's really the only guy on the team that can provide that transition push as a bigger player. You know, Dyson's ultimately a guard and he's too passive sometimes when he's leading fast breaks where he's not looking to score. And Dyson could probably be better than that, but like that's like if they want to break some games open against lesser teams, I think this will be a good opportunity for Ricochet to really grab and go, and for Dyson to grab and go as well, and look for their offense without looking for Trey in particular. But um, that's where you really miss a Jalen Johnson type player.
Yeah, it was like tonight you could see like so, I mean Dyson's been growing a lot. It drives his floaters, attacking space, attacking smaller defenders. Tonight the Clippers were like, he's gonna do these two things. And they were ready. And like that one break where he threw the lob and Derrick Jones Jr. was right in the middle of the paint. It's like it's not going to work, man. That lob is not going to work. You've got to go right at him and create contact and get something different. But every time he had the ball, you could see the Clippers were like, he's going to do these two things, and we're ready for it. And he couldn't get to either of the things that he's really good at. We talked about before his growth being knowing what he's good at, knowing what he's not good at yet. The Clippers just took that away from him tonight. Just
Yep.
completely took that away from him tonight. I know Hawks fans might be like, Dyson suck. Like sometimes I thought, and I know we all watch the game differently, so I'm not trying to be condescending or anything like that. But the Clippers were not letting Dyson do ever the things he's good at tonight. And that, Charlotte probably doesn't do that. Brooklyn probably doesn't do that. So hopefully, Dyson
Brook,
is
the good thing is most teams don't have the size to do that. The Clippers
right.
have the size to just not allow Dyson to bowl over smaller defenders, to do the spin move that he has to get to his spot. Like the Clippers have light size players, even James Harden included, and then they have Zubac at the rim to challenge shots. And like that was I thought Zuby was giving the Hawks a lot of problems. Trey as well, as a rim protector. I mean, he's one of the best rim protectors in basketball. So that's not too surprising. That's where you really wish you had a Larry Nance type option to take some pressure off you guys as a shooter to get Zubac out the lane and maybe out the game. Um, so, because I mean that I know I think we talked about the Milwaukee game. That was a couple weeks ago even, but like typically when the Hawks play Milwaukee, ultimately the game always tends to come down to can we get Brook Lopez off the floor or not? Because if Brook Lopez is in the game, he's affecting the shots at the rim, and that really kills what the Hawks do best, which is attacking the paint. So like, and I thought with Zubac in the game, and Yeka, uh, he's an improved shooter, but he's not there yet to where Larry Nance is right now. And not having a Larry Nance option was really, really brutal.
Yeah,
I
it's different. It's different for Lopez too, because like Lopez, you can play him off the floor and transition a little bit, and you can't really do that with
exactly,
Zubac. Zubac can keep up with that pace.
yeah,
Yeah, he just works hard. He's working hard all the time. And it's funny because twice I think in the first half they got him up to the elbow or free throw line area and hit a backdoor cut. And but the thing about a better team, you watch that they fixed it immediately. Like they call timeout and came back and the Hawks never had another backdoor pass on Zubac again. And veteran teams just do that. They're like, nope, this is the thing that's going to kill us. This is the thing that we can't let them do. This is the thing that they're good at. We're taking that away from them. Timeout, and it's gone. And I just think sometimes fans who are just wanting to casually watch the game, which is totally fine, may not realize like how surgical fixes are with a really experienced veteran team.
Got time for a couple newsy things?
Yeah.
Larry Nance has been at like the shoot arounds for the been a lot of shoot arounds this week for the Hawks with the homestand, but it looks like he's progressed to the point where he's getting his workouts as kind of like walking with a weighted vest.
Mm.
So I don't know how long that projects, but that seems to be about where he's at. But Bogey said a couple interesting things tonight. He said that he's not going to wear number 13 anymore as sort of a tribute to Hawks fans, and he said there was also a moment tonight where he he tried to high five Trey because he was used to after a good play, looking for Trey and celebrating. He saw Trey and it was like, oh wait, nope, not Trey this time. And man, I had one more and I forgot. Oh, I know what it
Did you
was. I
was it Batum? I was curious what Batum
I
had to say.
talked to Nick Batum, and at the end of talking to Nick Batum, I was like, "Did you ever play against Zachary's father?" And he's like, "Yeah, in the French Pro League." That's how time passes. When Nick Batum was Zachary's age, he was playing against Zachary's dad, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, I have that parallel in my person. Like I have people that worked for me like 20 years ago, and I didn't realize it's 20 years ago. And I have their kids in college asking me for internships, and I'm like, you were five like 3 years ago. So not the same thing as the basketball, but I'm having that generational wave come through. Like, go talk to Glenn. He'll get you know. So I'm right there with Mr. Batum.
All right. Well, see how this road trip goes, and maybe we hopefully can pod again after that. Thank you for joining me on a late night. I appreciate you both.
Well, good.
No problem.
Good night, Bob.
Good night, Bob.
Yeah, Bob.